You need to track what is happening with your Unreal Engine projects, because if you can't see what's going on under the hood, you're driving blind. In this video, we're diving into the Unreal Engine log, the best friend when it comes to debugging and understanding what your game is actually doing, from information to warnings and errors. We'll go step by step through logging different variable types, integers, floats, booleans, and of course, text, from simple strings to characters and even wide characters. By the end, you'll not only know how to code the log, but also why mastering this tool is essential skill for any Unreal developer, even for the most experienced. And before we jump in, don't forget to support this channel by liking this video, subscribing, and ringing the bell for more Unreal Engine tutorials, inspiration, and strategies. After all, keep in mind that technical skills is just 50% of what you need to have a successful career in video games. And on this channel, we also talk about the other 50% that many are failing to consider. Would you? And if you want to go even deeper, head over to boolean.com to learn more about the Game Creator Accelerator and get access to our free training, how to become a game changer video game creator after your daily job. Now, let's get started. Before we get into the details of the Unreal Engine log formats, I want to present you what I did, what I prepared. First, I created a project in Unreal 5.6, and it was an empty project, and I added C++. And inside the project, I just added a C class, which is called the base character, and it's the one that I will use to create the logs. And from that class, I also going to generate a blueprint that I will save on my folder of blueprints. Let's call this one base character BB and create. Now I have the blueprint here, save, and I'm going to place it on the scene. So in the moment that I run the game, I will execute the logs. Back on the class that I generated at the beginning, which is called the base character, let's start with the begin play. Because this is a demo of the logs, I'm just going to present different types of logs in Unreal at the moment that the game starts running or when this character begins play. To call the UI log or the Unreal Engine log, write UI log, and then I'm going to set some parameters that I will explain in just a second. Let's start with the UI log. This is Unreal's built-in megaphone. It shouts messages into the output log while your game is running, so you can spy on what's happening behind the scenes. Think of it like your character whispering updates to you. Then we have this log temp. This is the category of the log. In this case, it's a temporary log. Basically, you're telling Unreal, don't worry, I don't need a fancy category name right now, just throw it in the general purpose bucket. If you are more organized, then you can create other types of categories. But at this moment, I just want a basic temporary category. Then we have the warning. This is the verbosity level, how loud or serious this message sounds. And we can play with different types of verbosity. Let's play with the other two types that you can create. The first one is warning. The other you can create is display, which is very basic. It doesn't show, let's say, any feeling, and you will see what I mean in a second. And then we have the error. If we define it in a generic way, with the display is a casual, hey, it's just like, hey, just so you know. In the case of the warning is, you might want to check this out. And in the case of the error is, everything is on fire, please panic. Now let's save this, go back to the Unreal project, compile, and let's run. And because these are logs, you will find it in the output log. And here are our different log temp. Look that the first one is the warning, which is in yellow. As I told you, it's like, okay, you should consider this. In the log temp, when we present it as a display, it is just gray. It is another message, nothing important. And of course, we have the errors that should be in a very important and impactful color like red. So that's why we classify them with these names. Next, we're going to add a variable into this equation. So I'm going to call this variable new integer, and let's call it 55 because it is my favorite number. And now I will add another UE log, again log temp. This is usually not going to change. I'm going to use the warning because it's the mid color, and then text. And inside the text, I will add, let's say, new integer is init, and let me put this color, this code, and I'm going to explain it in a second. The line 23 is as simple as it looks. So you are declaring an integer variable called new int and giving it the value of 55. Now let's go to the interesting part, which is this one. I'm sorry that I forgot to mention how this section of the text works on the first part. So this is the actual message, and it's wrapped in the text macro. Unreal needs that macro so it can handle the text consistently across different platforms. Without it, your game might have a meltdown when you try to compile for that obscure handheld from 2005. So you have to use the text and the declaration of what you're going to say. But now with this new line of code where we are adding an integer that we're going to reference in our message, things are a little different. First, we have this $D.
Okay, English is difficult for me.
This $D is a placeholder for an integer value. It's like leaving a blank spot in the sentence where it says in this section of this sentence, you're going to add an integer. What integer you're going to add? This integer. That's why we add a new parameter in this sentence, and it's expected when we use this placeholder. Save again, go to our real project, compile, and run again. Now we have the first 3 sentences, and now new integer init 55. Excellent. But I also can add a new parameter, let's say another integer, which will be 60, and I call this one new integer 2. And let's say I want to add it after the new integer. So I'm going to add a comma and another D, and then new integer 2. Save, go back to our project, compile, and run, and you can see that we have first the 55 and then the 60. Let's add a comment for integers. In fact, integers. Now let's talk about floats. Well, as you can imagine, floats should need a code similar to this one. So first, let's add a float, and I call it, as you can imagine, new float. And let's say this is 65.65 and finish with an F because this is a float. And then I'm going to copy this and make some changes. First, I'm going to remove the last parameter, and the parameter I want to pass is the new float. But the float needs another placeholder. The placeholder for the float is F. Let's save, open our project, and again compile and run. And here we have our float. In fact, I'm going to make a small change here because this is a float. And you can also start combining a float, let's say, with a new integer, which was the other parameter that we declared here. And then let's say and integer %, and remember that we use the D here. We are going to put in the same order. So if first I'm going to require a float, then the float has to be first, and then because the second one is an integer, then the placeholder will be a D. Let's save it and run. And here we have it. First the float and then the integer. And the last type of number important to know is the double. We declare it double, new double. Let's assign the value of 0055. Now I'm going to copy this, paste them, and change the parameters. And the placeholder for the double is LF. Save and test it. And here is our double. Oh, I have to change this to double. Now that we covered the numbers, let's go to strings and character. Let's start with string. First, let's make a declaration of a string, which will be FString, new string, and let's initialize like a string, yeah. And the next question is, okay, what is the placeholder for this string? Let's copy this one at the end. And the placeholder for the string is really simple and intuitive. S. Oh, S. Let's save and test it. Oh, we have an error. Let me go back. Yeah, I realized what I did wrong. Well, first, let me call this one, this is a string in it. And the reason of my error is that I miss an asterisk before the new string. While the placeholder for the string is simple and very similar to the others, you need to add this asterisk before the new string. When we declare the new string, we don't declare it as a string, but as an FString, because this is the way that we declare the strings for Unreal. And when we do this declaration, we are saying that the new string is a box that contains text. But the UI log doesn't want the box, it wants the raw text inside that box. With the asterisk, we are telling or we are saying, hey, open the box and hand Unreal just the note inside. If we remove this asterisk, it wouldn't compile because Unreal will be like, what is this fancy FString object? I can read that directly. When we add the asterisk, though, this unwraps the FString into the plain text characters that the placeholder can understand. This all is related to the concepts of reference and pointers in C++. And I have another video that I will leave in the description, a link in the description, if you want to learn more about pointers, reference, and dereferencing. When we use this asterisk, it's because we are dereferencing the operator in C++. Now let's save and test it. And here we have our string, yeah. The next type is called FName. FName is like a tag or a label. Unreal stores names in a special way, so they are super fast to compare. You'll often see them used for identifiers. The declaration, let's start with one, which will be FName. Let's call it new name, player 1, Tony. Now let's copy the previous one that we used for the string and let's make our changes. First, this will be changed. The placeholder will be the same, but the difference here, oh, by the way, let me call this one new name in it. The difference here is that we are going to add at the end to string. Remember that I told you that the FName isn't a string. It's more like a super efficient label or ID that Unreal uses under the hood. So when you want to print it using the log, you first have to convert it into a text, and that's why we use the toString. That will provide you with an FString, and then this asterisk unwraps it into a raw characters that then Unreal can read with the placeholder. So FName is a label that toString turns into a readable text, and the asterisk handed the text to the log. Oh, I miss a W here. Let's save and test. And we have the player 1, Tony. One more for this group is the one named FText. FText is a localized text, the stuff you want to translate into all the languages. If your game ever needs to speak French, Spanish, or Klingon, you want FText. But the declaration of the FText is a little bit more complicated. So let's start with new text, and the declaration will be FText from string and then the text. Yo soy Tony. In another language, which is Spanish in my case. And similar to the case of the FName, let me copy and paste it here and change the parameters. I also going to transform to string using the placeholder %s again. Let's test. And here it is. The next we're going to cover is the character. The declaration of the character is a little bit different, but just a little bit. We declare like car or char, new character, and this is the part where it is different. We're going to use single quotes instead of double quotes. Now we're going to use the same structure we use for the float. It could be the integer as well, because in the case of the characters, we don't need to dereference the variable. Let's change these values here, and the placeholder is just C. Let's save and test. And here we have it. Then you have another type which is called the wide characters. I call it here wide character. The declaration is w char _t new wide car or char, and we initialize it like L or capital L and then the character. Let's call it here at the moment B. Probably you have the question, okay, what is the difference between character and wide character? Well, character holds basic characters like standard ASCII, like A, B, C, 1, and so on. They're great if you only need English letters and a few symbols. Now, wide characters, which is the W character, in this case, the size depends on the platforms, and it could be 2 bytes on Windows, 4 bytes on Linux and Macs, and can hold much larger sets of characters. For example, accented letters, Asian scripts, or emojis. Even the Chinese characters can be added into the wide characters. Even though I don't use this type very much, I want you to have an idea of how will be the declaration for a wide character. So I'm going to copy this here again with a warning. Change this one. For the wide character, we're also going to use the %c, but this section is the one that is different. First, we're going to make a call. We're going to cast the variable as a tchar, and then we're going to pass the variable. Save, and let's test. And here it is. And the last type I want to introduce for logs is the Boolean. The declaration of the Boolean is pretty straightforward. It's bool, new bool. And what's interesting about Boolean is that you can define it as true or false, but also as 1 and zeros. And Unreal will understand, and C++ will understand it anyway. For the log, we can use any of this. Let's change the variable. And the placeholder finished with a D. Save and test. And as you can see, even though I declare the value as true, the log will present it as 1 or 0, 1 for true or 0 for false. So now you know how to use the Unreal Engine log to track integers, floats, booleans, and even different kinds of text. It may look simple, but this skill is what separates developers who guess from developers who really understand what's happening in their games. Remember, every great game developer needs the ability to see under the hood, and the log is your window into that truth. Master it, and debugging stops being frustrating and starts becoming empowering. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next tutorial and strategies. Drop a comment below and let me know what's the first thing you are going to log in your own project. And if you're ready to go beyond technical skills and start building a real career in video games, Head to boolean.com to learn more about the Game Creator Accelerator and join my free training, How to Become a Game Changer Video Game Creator After Your Daily Job. Until next time, keep creating, keep sharing, and most importantly, keep dreaming big. I'll see you soon, my fellow creators.